Rock and roll Chicago, rock and roll Chicago, my hometown. Well, I was born in the city, gonna rock your city, Chicago. Chicago rock and rollers are the best year out around.
Hey, this is Paul Martin
And Ray the Roadie.
for the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast. What's up, Ray?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Why?
I'm just wondering.
What's up with you?
No, I got a new book.
Did you?
Yeah.
I got a new book too.
Did you?
I did. I got a CD too.
Awesome.
Yeah. You got a new dog, didn't you?
I did get a new dog.
Yeah.
Shout out to AJ.
Hey, Jay.
AJ. Yeah, my wife and I are both history nuts. So we named him after Andrew Jackson.
Oh, very good. I was thinking Persinski.
Oh, it was actually Brzezinski. Is my wife's favorite White Sox player from the past.
So does...
I was going to name him Paulie, but we've already got one of those in the house.
Yeah, you'd have to come running every time you heard,
Yeah.
Paulie.
I do.
Paulie, quit shitting in the kitchen. It's not me.
Yeah, believe me. No.
That's right. Well, that's cool. That's cool. You have to... I'm sure since he's named after a baseball player, he's probably chases his ball then and retrieves it. And
Oh, yeah. Yes, he does.
cool. Very cool. So what's on tap for today there?
Well, we've got we're talking to rock promoter or show promoter, I should say, author, and an all around good guy, Bud Monaco.
Buddy Monaco.
That's right. But if you're a Southside musician, then you know Bud Monaco.
That's right. For sure.
Yes.
Been around a long time with SoPro.
Yes, he's president and founder of SoPro Music, and he's a record producer. He's an author. He's a rock show promoter, blues show promoter.
Quite diversified.
Yes, he is. Yes, he's done a lot in his tenure.
In 10 years?
No. In more like 30 or 40 years.
Oh, okay. I thought you said 10 years.
No, more like 40 years.
I see.
At least, if not longer.
I see.
50 years.
Well, I'm sure he's got some stories to tell.
Yes, he does. Let's get to Bud and see what he has to say.
Okay.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today we're speaking with rock promoter, a producer, a drummer, MC, a hockey referee, right?
Hockey referee for 40 years in the Illinois Hockey Hall of Fame.
I know him as Buddy. You know him as Bud Monaco. How you doing, Bud?
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
I'm doing great this morning. Paul and Ray, thank you for inviting me out on the show. It's a pleasure. And you guys are doing a great job out here with this.
Thank you.
Keep on rocking.
Thank you. Well, I know you've got a show that you've got coming up at the Beverly Arts Center on April 16th, and we'll get to that. But let's start out a little bit of history of Bud Monaco, and find out how you got started in the business and how things came to fruition now.
Okay, back in the mid 60s or so, I started playing the drums. And me and a couple of neighborhood guys formed a band. We were called the Fascinations. We played 2 or 3 gigs at some small auditoriums in grammar schools. And eventually I got drafted into the Army in 69. When I got out in 71, I started going to Southwest College, which is now Kennedy College. Or I'm sorry, it's now Daly College. And I met with some veterans and some other college guys that were looking to start a hockey team. So I had experience with hockey and organization as I was a sergeant in the Army, and these guys didn't have no control of nothing. I took over the meeting, created a hockey club, and we started originally practicing at Rainbow Ice Arena up on the north side, Lawrence and Clark. And while we were there, I met up with a guy that was managing that ice rink, the Rainbow Ice Arena. And I had played hockey against him back in the 60s when I played in the juvenile league there when I was in high school. And he suggested that to raise some money for the hockey team for jerseys and ice time, that I should maybe do some kind of a concert with a live band and collect money at the door. And I said, sounds like a good idea. I'll look into that and see if I can locate a place to do this show sometime, in the near future. And he says, no, he says, I don't want you to look for a place. He said, I have a place right here. And I says, you mean like out on the ice? And he says, no, right in here in Aaron Russo's kinetic playground. And it turns out that whole building that housed the ice arena was housed the original Rainbow Ballroom from back in the 20s and 30s. And Aaron Russo had started doing concerts in there in the late 60s. Had Led Zeppelin and a Winter Brothers band and a host of other bands until he quickly outgrew that room and took over the Aragon Ballroom and left that room with the stage and all the lights intact. So I meet up with Tony Wilson and Eddie Davis, who were going to Southwest College with me, and we're friends with my younger sister. These guys were a little younger than me, and they had this band that was pretty popular around Marquette Park and 69th Street and the old Lithuanian neighborhood, 67th and Western. I hired them. We brought a small PA system in. We went in there. We wound up having about 1,500 people show up at that show that night. We called it the Rock and Roll Ice Skating Party. And it was so successful financially and performance-wise that my partner, Red Rose, and I decided that this was what we were going to do for the rest of our lives. And here we are about 50 years later, and that's exactly what we did. I proceeded to work with local bands and promoting shows at VFW halls and local high school auditoriums. And eventually we started doing shows at the Countryside Civic Center, which we were drawing up to 1,000 to 1,500 people. We worked with some of the great bands of the era, the Hounds, Stevie Starlight, the Jet Band, Gene Strenz and Carl Cera's killer rock and roll band with vocalist Richie Hasdra. Now, back in them days, you had the North Side and the South Side. Well, we really had the South Side going. And there was no big concert venue. The only venues that were going was the Aragon, and they started doing shows at the Chicago International Amphitheater. We were doing these smaller level concerts with locals, but we were really drawn. The rock and roll crowd was there to be had. You just had to get out and promote it. And eventually, with all the success we had in the mid to late 70s, some of the rock and roller guys morphed into being blues players, and we got to know some blues cats. And my first blues show was at Joliet College with the famous Lefty Diz, the iconic elder statesman of Chicago blues, and along with the great harmonica player, Siegel Swall, Corky Siegel, was the opened up for Lefty Diz.
Right.
And from that day on, we continued to do blues, and along with who became one of my closest brothers and friends, Jody Noah, we started doing the Thanksgiving blues reviews, which was, we brought in a dozen blues players, and we did a stage show similar that I designed it after a Cab Calloway show from the 20s and 30s, where there would be a core band and then individual vocalists and saxophone players, etc., like Ruth Brown and the greats from those days, Josephine Baker. They would show up and come out and do their own performance and do a segment. And throughout that show, eventually, Cab Calloway would stroll out on the stage with that big, long white suit and the long chain and the big red hat, and doing his Minnie the Mooch song, Heidi, 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 Ho. And back in the day, this was monster stuff in the East Coast, and it morphed into the Midwest. I guess it would have went to California. I don't know the history of it all on that, but it was big time. And that's how I designed this show. So I have a core band with 2-3 guitar players, drum, bass, keyboards, and I bring in a harmonica player, which was Jody Noah originally, along with Bill McFarland and the Chicago Horns, and other special guests like Lefty Diz and Casey Jones and Lonnie Brooks, all famous, iconic blues players. Unfortunately, all passed away now. Right. Although the Chicago Horns are all still intact, but they're getting up there in years, just like myself and like my friend Paul Martin over here.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Paul and I have been through some trying times with our own medical history, but we're still alive and rocking.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Thank goodness.
So anyways, through the years, we promoted 37 annual Thanksgiving blues reviews featuring the royalty of Chicago blues. And I handed Paul a list of some of the great players that perform with us, which are too many to mention right at this point. Maybe at a later date we can come back and discuss that. But for 37 years until the COVID hit, and we've been dormant for the past 2 years. And also alongside that, for 30 years, we did the So Pro Music's Easter Parade blues reviews on every Easter weekend. But back about 10 years ago, we dropped the Easter show and just stuck with our Thanksgiving show. While the COVID was going on, my dear friend and brother, who is actually my brother-in-law, Tommy Biondo, one of the great bass players and musicians and entertainers of Chicago and the Midwest, and actually nationally known when he played with the great theater band on Spirit Records, and most recently with his band, The Wrong Boys. Tommy unexpectedly passed away in a year ago, September, now going on 15 months ago.
Yeah, that was a shame. I know. I knew Tommy pretty well.
Just heartbreaking out of nowhere.
Yeah.
We won't get into the specifics, but Tommy's gone. And
I know. I was talking to him about doing an interview with us.
With the Wrong Boys and him and Goose and Joe Izzo and Rob Martin. Sure. Great band, the Wrong Boys.
Right.
They were top. That band, if they would have been, now actually Tommy and Goose, Steve Stasiak, they were together back in the 70s with a band called The Ants, was when I first met Tommy and Steve.
Okay.
And through the years, they both morphed through another half a dozen different bands or more. And back, let's see, it would be in the maybe late 90s, Goose and Mo Dog, Tommy, they hooked back up and brought in Joe Izzo on vocals and Rob Martin on drums. Rob played with Scraps.
Oh, okay.
Back in the day. Well,
okay. Right. Rob Martin, right. I know Rob Martin.
Sure. No relation to Paul Martin, I don't think, right?
No.
Anyways, they've been performing for 20, 25 years, maybe more, as the Wrong Boys. And they had a great following, and they put on, there's some, outstanding veteran musicians, to say the least. Well, Tommy's passing. I've done numerous benefits and tribute shows for past brothers and sisters, musicians, and that have left us. And I had my hands tied because the COVID had all the restrictions out and there was nothing open to promote it. So as the days and the years went on with the COVID, limited rock clubs in Chicago area, which used to be one on every block before, that had full stages and sound and lights, are very limited. Well, anyways, looking around trying to find a venue that would hold 200 to 400 people was a challenge. And eventually I hooked up with Dan Jacobson, who is the general manager and operations chief of the Beverly Arts Center. Chicago's South Side on 111th and Western. And
so your company, So Pro, has been around for many, many years. And you've done
since
tons of
1971.
Tons of shows at different venues. Is this your first time doing something at the Beverly Arts Center?
First time at the Beverly Arts
So
Center.
this is something new for you, right?
And I've always wanted to do a show there. I've seen a couple of shows there years ago when I was with your band, Paul, the Dancing Noodles, at their 35th anniversary. And prior to that, with Frank Livingston's Kashmir Band, the tribute to Led Zeppelin, an evening with Led Zeppelin, and also with M&R Rush,
right,
for the 3 or 4 shows they played there that I emceed these shows. And I was like standing on that stage saying, oh man, I really want to do a show in this venue.
It's a great little theater.
It's a beautiful little theater. It's like a little mini auditorium theater. It holds 390 people, which is kind of limited for the size of the stage. The size of the stage is a full professional theater stage that's 60 wide by 45 or 50 deep, and a full proscenium overhang with multiple curtain drops. Just outstanding. Beautiful venue.
So you've linked up with them. This is where your show will be at April 16th.
This show will be performed and produced on April 16th, a Saturday, at the Beverly Arts Center, which is 2407 West 111th Street. We are calling the show the Tommy Biondo and Billy King Tribute Memorial Concert Event, featuring So Pro Music's 38th annual Thanksgiving Blues Review Band, with special guests Joey Marabelli and Shannon Freer, vocalist, along with Tony Wilson and Nobody's Business, and Tommy's band, The Wrong Boys. Now, I've been getting not static, but questionable people that are questioning my sanity, which is not new to me, that we are calling this the 38th Thanksgiving Blues Review, but it's on Easter weekend. And people are saying, well, is this an Easter show? Well, we stopped doing Easter shows 10 years ago.
Right.
Okay. And I said, look, we would have done our 38th annual Thanksgiving Blues Review back in 2019 when COVID hit.
Okay.
Well, for 2 years plus now, we haven't been able to do the show.
Sure.
So the next show for our Thanksgiving Blues Review will be as 38th. Well, I wanted to do it in November, but the Beverly Arts Center, because of the COVID and also the Bourbon Street Place and numerous other locations, were solidly booked because of all the cancellations the year before from COVID, from September.
So they're booking the bands.
They were all already booked. Everybody took the next time. So all these places were booked out through January. So I decided, I said, well, okay, let's move out of the winter and get into the spring so that we don't have any weather problems. And I chose that April 16th date. Well, unbeknownst to me at the time, that was the Easter weekend. So it's not an Easter parade blues review. It's the belated 38th annual, but it's not annual because we got juked 2 years by COVID. Thanksgiving Blues Review.
Now, will you do something come November?
I hope to, but I don't know that we can afford to go into the Beverly Arts Center to do that. Right. Because of the expense.
Right.
We are my partner Red Rose and I are borrowing no expense here to pull the show off for Tommy. And I did mention, I need to go back here about it being the Billy King Tribute Memorial Show. Back in December, late December, word reached me from Billy's wife, Karen, that Billy had passed away. Billy King is one of the classic vintage, iconic blues players of Chicago. He's been around.
Guitar player.
Extraordinary. He's been playing on our Blues Review shows for the past 25 years. I met up with him back in the 90s, and I had a slot open up one of my shows. I brought him into one of our summer blues reviews, and he was a lock ever since. Great, extremely talented blues guitarist, a crowd pleaser. He works a crowd as good as anybody from the stage. He gets the crowd into it during his segments. Were highly regarded and favored by always our sold out crowds wherever we did it. We've done this show in about 20 different nightclubs and venues throughout all these years. It was a tragic loss, and nobody, we didn't know that Billy was sick, but he had been sick for a while. Well, I got this Tommy tribute going, okay? And here's my other brother and friend and music partner, Billy, who passes away, and I got this giant show going. It's not a benefit. It's a tribute memorial show. And I says, well, we'll call it the Tommy Biondo and Billy King Memorial Tribute Show. I couldn't, I didn't want to have to do another show for Billy.
You have to do a salute to both of them.
So I added I added Billy to our show. And I had a medical situation back in December that I told my 55-decade-long partner, my graphic artist who designs all my book covers and my promo and artwork and tickets, Boris Bowden, that I says, listen, by the way, if I don't make it out of that operating room, you be sure to add my name to Tommy and Billy. I says, and the show must go on. And everybody got a kick out of that. And Boris says, you moron, you don't talk like that. You'll be just fine. Well, I am just fine. And the show will go on April the 16th. Now,
without your name on it, right? Well, without your
without my name on it.
As a memorial.
Right.
Thing.
My presence will be known. But
SoPro name is on it.
The SoPro presents in concert, of course, as I mentioned, the Tommy Biondo, Billy King Tribute Memorial Concert event featuring the SoPro Blues Review Band. Now, quickly, I can give you a rundown on the performers that are on my Blues Review. I mentioned the other bands, Tony Wilson and Nobody's Business and the Wrong Boys. My dear friend Bobby Dunn was supposed to do the opening scene with my sister's granddaughter, Shannon Freer. But unfortunately, Bobby has some medical situations, medical malfunctions that are preventing him from playing on the show. So my dear friend and my producer of my own personal music projects, Joey Marabelli, will perform an acoustic song with Shannon Freer to open the show. Now, the performers, the Blues Review performers that are playing on this show are some of the royalty of Chicago blues, featuring Joey Drada on guitar and vocals, John Falstrom, bass player, Grant Niebergall, drums. Grant was Billy King's drummer, by the way. Frank Anastas on guitar and vocals, Harry Zerbis on keyboards, along with Wolfman, Greg Schlettner on keyboards, Doug Lee, the Detroit harmonica man, harmonica and vocals, along with his Doug Lee's Family Blues Band featuring Eddie Neese on guitar, and the iconic present godfather of Chicago blues, the veteran blues king of bass, Robert Stroger. Also, Mike McEwen on bass, Rob Davis on drums, Bill Shackford on keyboards, and another iconic elder statesman of Chicago blues, the great Chainsaw DuPont on guitar, along with two SoPro music recording artists that we've been recording together for 40 years now, France Marie and Victoria Tellerico, the two golden songbirds on vocals. Now, also, which will be performing throughout the Blues Review, will be the great and iconic and national and somewhat internationally known Bill McFarland and the Chicago Horns, also SoPro Records recording artists. Bill McFarland on trombone, Kenny Anderson on the trumpet, Hank Ford on saxophone, and Tony Ferraro on saxophone. Paul.
Yes.
Ray. jump in here and give me a break. I told these guys before, I said, I hope they got a lot of tape and a lot of time because we could carry this conversation about Soul Pro music that covers 50 years of Chicago rock and roll, blues, and jazz. And we could talk about this till Thursday, and that would just be the first 5 chapters.
Well, tell us a little bit about, we understand you're an author. And you've got a couple of books out.
Back in somewhere around 2012, I kind of laid back off the music business, which my partner Red Rose and I were doing 24/7, 365. We were living the dream. Okay. Well, it got to a point as we got aged, and we got older that, well, being on a rock club floor, just like you, Paul, the Dancing Noodles used to play 3 or 4 dates a week, which is now maybe 2 or 3 days a month, if that much. Right. Okay. It just gets to be as we get older, we can still perform and produce and promote, but we can't do it 7 days a week.
Right.
Okay. Hanging out in the clubs and drinking and partying.
I know that.
So anyways, we kind of kicked back and what we call ourselves semi-retired. But
how's Red, by the way?
Red's doing fine. He's had a few medical issues like yourself and myself, but he's healthy, well, and still hanging in there, rocking and rolling.
And well, tell Red we said hello.
I will tell him that. I get him to tune into this, your podcast here when you eventually. I started writing. I've been a writer. I've written a lot of music, a lot of lyrics through the years with my military music dedications, which were honoring the American veterans and present day warriors from World War II through Korea, Vietnam, and the present Iraq, Afghanistan wars. I've written a lot other of material, songs, and I started a couple of books years ago, but being on a rock club floor all the time, I just didn't have the time to deal with it.
Sure.
So back in somewhere around 2010 or so, 12, I wrote my first book, which was a 700-page biography of my 2 years in the Army, which my overseas tour covered. I spent in Panama in the Canal Zone. And it's very interesting about Army history and basic and advanced infantry training and all the Army stuff and all the events that took place in Panama, which some of them people are still saying, I can't believe you guys did this. Do you actually did that or you did this? I said, it's all true. Okay. No holds were barred and I didn't make anything up. So after that, I got this writing thing going. Okay. I figured out how to, structure a book and structure writing. And my next book was called Riding Easy, A Rediscovery of America, which was a similar parallel storyline to Easy Rider with Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda.
Sure.
And now I got the groove. Okay. I got this writing thing down pretty good. And I wrote some good story there and Riding Easy. And I wrote my next book, which was called Tone King, which actually I started writing that back in the late 70s, 80s. I started taking notes and writing about the music business. And Tone King's story takes a young guitar player named Jimmy Shreds, who forms his band, the Full Shred. Jimmy Shreds and the Full Shred Band, from the depths of the basement and garage, the basement depths to the garage, startup of a band who eventually become the biggest, most famous, and richest rock stars on the planet. And there's a couple special twists in there that I won't give up right now, because when people have read it, they go, where did you come up with this?
Yeah.
How did you tie this in with rock and roll? Well, read the book and you'll see how the parallel, how it was created. Okay. Right. It's a great storyline. And it's the life.
So it's fiction. It's fiction.
It's fiction based on real life.
Okay.
The real life is my own life in the music business, as well as yourself and as well as Ray. Okay. the trials and tribulations of climbing out of the basement and getting into the small clubs and VFW halls and stuff, and then into the nightclubs, and then into the concert stage, and then record deals and photographs and record labels and merchandising and national and world tours. It just exploded. You and I, Paul and Ray, through the first half of the book, we pretty much lived that life. Okay.
Right.
We just never got over the hump and became the most famous and richest rock stars on the planet. Okay. But we had a great time doing it. And we had no regrets about our careers. We gave it our best shot. Okay. The record labels didn't want to hear those few originals that the Dancing Noodles did. I had musicians and other bands that had great material, like the Jet Band, Gene Strenz and Carl Cera and Richie Hasda, that they wrote, that we were so close to record deals. We were right there. We were out in California in New York with Clive Davis and David Geffen and the monster major cats that were looking at us. But the music business and the publishing business, which I learned in the past 10, 12 years, those owners and publishers and lawyers, not to be crude, but both the music and the book businesses, those guys all come from the same pile of poop. Okay? They are not nice people. And if you don't know them or have the money to run with them.
Tell us how you really feel, Bud.
And, I'm sorry, Clive, if I offended you. You were a good one, though, Clive. Some of the other guys in your business were not so pleasant to deal with. It was just such a runaround. Now, we had limited income, and we'd go in and spend $9,000 at Chicago Recording Company, okay, for instance, to do 3 classic demo songs. But they weren't demos. These were songs that were ready to go, okay? And we'd get in the door and get an interview with one of these big time record labels, and we'd bring it to them, and they'd play the music. And I remember, these guys are millionaires. They got 20 other acts. You know, they got Van Halen, they got Led Zeppelin, they got Aerosmith. We're just some, a needle in the haystack to them at the time. Okay. Right. And they listen to the 3 songs and they go, oh, well, these sound pretty good, but we need 3 more. And I'm like, where am I going to get another $9,000, to make 3 more? We don't have our own studio. We got to pay for this ourselves. You want to pay for that? We'll do as many songs as you want. If you like this, cut us a deal. Right. Didn't happen. So eventually I got out of that end of the business of trying to get record deals, because we had respect in the clubs, in these, in some of the smaller concert halls, of promoting local music, and we were making a good living at it. So we just stuck with that and played our hand out and got out of the big end of the music business. Without big money, and I'm talking hundreds of thousands, in order to put a band on the road yourself, as an independent promoter or band manager or record label, make your own record, master, print, and press the albums, at the time, and promotion. The radio stations, other than WXRT, and what was the station that did the local Chicago rock album?
It was the Loop.
The Loop, okay? They did that album. Yeah. Other than those 2 stations, none of these other major stations anywhere in the country would give a local band, even if they were doing original music, of course, no covers.
Maybe KQX did one too, right?
Yeah, KQX did one too.
KQX, another one. Very few that would even give it a spin.
Right.
Okay? And so there was, without the record labels behind you, and it's a well-known fact, there was some big corruptions within the radio stations and the record producers, distributors.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Oh, yeah. There was a game being played that the feds came down on that. The feds came down on all that 30 years ago with Rico statue and stuff, and put a lot of people in jail for crooked politics and money operations. Right. Anyways, we had a successful career, my partner Red and I, and all the great bands that we worked with, counting you and your crew with the Dancing Noodles, Paul.
So
anyways, after Tone King, I got off the the track of that kind of novel, and I wrote a military novel called Eternally Immortal Soldier, which the title tells you that I had an immortal soldier who fought in 6 wars: the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Any readers, I'm not giving the whole story away, but any readers that just read the title will know that my main character, Sergeant Duncan Cloverhill, is an immortal, as we've seen on TV programs, the Highlander, and programs of such, where this guy gets killed and he shows up 100 years later or 10 years later in a different place, and he's still alive. Well, the same thing happens with Sergeant Duncan Cloverhill. Some of the people that read it said, "Where do you come up with this stuff?" He says, "Well, it's fiction, but the battles and the times and the eras and all the intricacies of the story are all real. It's just fictional that this guy's going to fight in 6 wars over 200 years." So then I got into writing some short stories. My first short story book was called 6, with 6 short stories. And my latest one was called 6 More, with 6 more short stories. I'm presently working on 6 plus. And I'm having a great time writing it. I spend my mornings and sometimes afternoons writing, and the rest of the day watching reruns of NCIS and Castle. And then late night, the network TVs. So
you're not slowing down at all.
No, I'm not slowing down. And this show, this upcoming Tommy Biondo and Billy King tribute memorial concert, I've really got wrapped up into, putting a big show together again, which I had done, a couple times a month, the bigger shows, of course. And there was a time that, like at Harlow's and Haywire's, the nightclubs, throughout 1 month, we had like 10, 12 bands playing throughout the 30-day period that we were handling and working with, and not actually booking, but more so promoting than booking, but we handled all the booking direct. We rarely went through booking agents, because early on, the booking agents are from that same pile that the book publishers and the music industry guys are from. Yeah. But I do got to say, and I'll mention this in case he's listening, Joey DeMarco was one of the few guys that wasn't one of those guys from that pile. Okay. He was a true rock and roller. Right. He was a great bass player, played in half a dozen great bands for 25, 30 Risk. And he did that Led Zeppelin tribute, Presence, I think it was called, and a couple other bands.
Joey's name has been mentioned quite a few times in this podcast.
Great. Good friend, good brother, always right on. Never had a problem with him over percentages of booking fees and club dates. Spot on guy. But I believe Joey's retired now. I worked with Joey numerous times at some venues that he was an exclusive booking agent. Right. And with him, I had no problem going to him and giving him his kickback. But other joints that had an exclusive booking agent, I went right to the owner. I said, "Here's the deal. I'll come in here and I'll put 300 people in your nightclub, but I'm not going through that booking agent. I deal with you direct. You don't have to pay me nothing. I'll collect at the door. Win, lose, or draw, it doesn't cost you anything." And I never had to shell out an extra dime. It always turned out a decent profit.
Because you push your shows, you promote them.
You got to promote them. You can't just, bands would just go in and get hired, and they didn't do nothing. We did promo. We printed up these posters here and mailing cards. I had a mailing list. And nowadays, of course, we had the internet and the Facebook thing. I have to say I have at least 25 or 30 people, including musicians and other friends and family, that have posted this show on their Facebook pages. Right. So, we're covering, thousands of people. I only wish that with my mailing list and So Pro press release email, that 1,000 of those people would be standing out in front waiting to get in after the first 400 tickets are sold. They were sold out. And then I would go outside and say, "Okay, folks, we're going to do another show tomorrow night. Step up and buy some tickets. We'll get you in." But anyways, We're looking for a big success on this show on Saturday, April 16th at the Beverly Arts Center. And this is one of the premier venues in Chicagoland. I'm just very honored to have the ability to do a show in here, which I've been looking to do for years. Also, to be in the presence of all these great musicians that I've been working with of over 5 decades. Of course, Red and I, we could promote a dog show. Well, I guess that's pushing it because dog shows are pretty popular these days. But we could promote a band. We could promote a concert. But it's the musicians that make the performance.
Right.
Without the players like yourself, Paul, and the rest of the Noodles with Terry and Brian and Jimmy Hood and your horn section.
Eddie Kammer. Ed Kammer.
And Eddie Kammer. You guys are legendary. And all these players here have made careers out of their music, but never got rich enough to retire on their careers and all have worked jobs and raised families. But everybody says, well, that guy is really good. How come he never made it? Well, all of these pro players that I mentioned, including yourself and the rest of your band, along with Tony's and the Kashmir Band with Frankie Livingston and his crew, they are as good as anybody. Now, people argue the point that, well, they ain't as good as Jimmy Page or Brian May or Eric Clapton or Freddie Mercury. Well, actually, if you know the music like you do, Ray and Paul and myself, you can hear that what Joey Drada or Doug Lee or Robert Stroger, well, he's pretty famous to tell you the truth, other than the rest of them, or Gene Strenz, or these guys are as good as those players.
Sure.
They just didn't get the break.
Right.
They weren't in the right place at the right time, and they didn't have money behind them.
Right.
Some guys didn't need money. They just got the break. Other guys that had money behind them with a manager that had a disposable income that he could spread money out on these bands, they got breaks. There's tens, hundreds of thousands of musicians compared to the few thousand that make it.
Right.
So it's just a matter of not getting the break. Back to my point, getting back on point. These musicians that I've been working with, without them, these shows wouldn't be possible. It's their extraordinary performances and musicmanship and quality of showmanship that sell this show out for the past 38 years. Okay. And my heart goes out to them. Red and I, we love all these players. We thank them for being part. I say our show, but it's our show, them included. It's all of our show, because without us promoting, without them performing, there would be no show.
Right.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Very good. Very good. Well, I understand you got another project you're working on too, right? You're working on now.
You talking to Frank Sinatra that I mentioned?
Yes.
Okay. I started working on a project as on a whim. One night after
It wasn't on a dare, right?
Yeah, literally.
It was?
After a Enough's Enough show that Joe Jammer opened up for, we were at Chip's Enough's apartment. Okay. Now, Chip and Jammer, they didn't know each other. Okay. Jammer's was long gone in England and traveling the world, and Chip was on his own spaceship. Okay.
Right.
Well, I bring these guys together. I didn't bring them together. We wound up together at Chip's after the gig, which I think was wasn't Tommy's place yet. It was a joint before Tommy's place in Blue Island. And if any of you folks out there know Joe Jammer or Chip's Enough, you know that if either one of them, let alone both of them, are in the same room, don't even try to get involved in a conversation, because you're not going to get a word in.
Right.
These two guys are incredible conversationalists, as they'll call it. Well, they start talking about, well, I played with this guy. I played over there. I was in North Africa. I was in Hawaii. We played up over in Japan. You know, it was just this machine gun conversation between these two guys. And one of them says to the other, you know what? we should do something together. We should record a song together. And I'm sitting there, and both of them turn and look at me, and I says, oh, of course, look at me, because neither one of you's got a pot to pee in or a dime to spend in a recording studio. You're going to look at me and my partner, Red, to come in and finance a recording session. And they both looked at each other. They went, yeah. Anyways, I said, okay, let's put something together. Took some suggestions from them, not that particular night because we were too blasted and too whacked out. And this is like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, folks. And I'm not ashamed to say we were loaded. Let me tell you, we had it on. We had it going on. So through the next couple of weeks, I said, you guys give me some suggestions on the songs you want to do. Well, they come up with some bizarre songs. I think one of them, Chip said something about, well, we should do an Abba song. And I said, Abba? I said, what does Abba have to do with Enough's Enough or Joe Jammer's music or Soul Pro, rock and roll we do? I said, they're, and he looked, he goes, well, I think it'd be cool. I said, okay, you're out of the choice making. And then Jammer, I forget what he come up with, some other bizarre thing. I don't know, some English band that nobody ever heard of that he knew when he was living over there.
Right.
And I said, okay, that's it. I'm going to spend my dough on this. I'm going to pick the song. I always had a thing for Bobby Darin and Frank Sinatra's Mac the Knife.
Mac the Knife.
Okay.
Right.
So I said, let's just go in and let's do a version. We're going to keep it in the same frame as Bobby and Frank did, okay? We're not going to change it around. We're not going to rearrange it. We'll just play it pretty straight as they did, except in our new modern age with the new technology, it's going to have a little more funk to it, a little more guitar, a little more drum hit, Right. And these two guys went in there, along with Jerry Frank on drums, and Chip on bass, Jammer on guitar, Chip's vocalist, Donnie V, played piano, and it just turned out great, the rhythm track. And then we brought Perry Danos, the great Perry Danos, in to do the lead vocal.
Right.
Because if anybody is going to get close to Frank Sinatra,
Perry can.
this is Perry Danos. Perry does a Frank Sinatra thing with a piano player in Nashville these days.
Does he?
He plays on the riverboats down there and all the high-end hotels, and him and this guy do a duo. He also has his rock and roll band that he does too. But Perry could have been the next Michael Bublé, okay? When he moved down to Nashville, he was writing music and performing in a couple of the studios down there. And he met up with this guy record label guy, who heard him sing and heard him do the Frank Sinatra deal with his piano player at some casino or boat or whatever. And the guy offered him a deal to come in and make a jazz album, a big band jazz album. More a big band swing than jazz.
Right.
And this guy put a band around Perry of all these great Nashville jazz cats, big band cats. And he did an album. They recorded it. I promoted their first show here in Chicago at the Joint down on Huron and LaSalle. This was about 10, 12 years ago. And this guy had Perry playing in Vegas at the casinos and the hotels, and he had him out in New Jersey at the hotels and casinos.
Right.
And the album was doing good. And if you know Michael Bublé and Harry Connick Jr., this is the style they're doing.
Sure.
And Perry was right there with it. I mean, it was boom. It was the bomb, And then he had them in New Orleans where they have the casinos and the bars. And then out of nowhere, this record guy stopped doing the records and got out of the business. And Perry's big band career was just like gone. And I was like, Perry, what happened here?
Yeah.
You were on the track. You were headed there, He was going to be opening up for Harry Connick and Bublé, and there are a whole lot of those guys out there that reaching that kind of stardom.
Right.
There's thousands of them playing casinos and nightclubs and old time
crooners,
exactly. Crooners. And he was like, buddy, I don't know. I says, okay, keep doing what you're doing and catch the next train.
Oh, the shark, babe, has such teeth, dear, and it shows them pearly whites. Just a jackknife has old Mac hit, babe, and it keeps it.
After Mac the Knife was such a great production and performance by and produced by Chips Enough, it was just like boom. Okay, I'm just turning you guys onto this disc now. You listen to this and you'll see what I'm saying. These cats and Jeff Lewis did a masterful job of mixing and engineering at the Star Trek studio, and so after I says,
Quite familiar with Jeff's work.
oh, I know that. Jeff is quite the engineer and producer. He's not just an engineer and a studio guy, and a great guitarist who is partners with
me.
Paul Martin here in the great M&R Rush Band, along with Marty and the rest of the crew. Anyways, so I said, let's do another song. Let's build this project with late 50s and early 60s. Golden oldies. So I decided, now I'm making a choice. I'm spending my money. I'm going to choose the songs. Okay?
Sure, absolutely.
And I choose Stagger Lee, Lloyd Price's Stagger Lee. And we knocked out another great performance. Okay.
The night was clear and the moon was yellow and the leaves came tumbling down. I was silent on the corner when I heard my bulldog bark. He was barking at the two men who were gambling in the
And now my mind is set on getting these songs in. Now, this was a time back 25, maybe 30 years ago. This has been going on for 3 decades, piece by piece, a little side project, that I could get this onto the TV commercials, which started using modern music in their commercials.
Sure.
Okay, for every song. And I'm saying, well, man, I could one of these songs, songs like this, Piece of Meal would fit into this.
Right.
And movie soundtracks. They started, of course, back in '69, Easy Rider was the first to really use modern music as a soundtrack.
Right.
There were individual songs in the movies in the 30s and 40s, like Casablanca.
Play it again, Sam.
Play it again, Sam. That's the title of the song. Songs like that were individual songs that were placed in those movies, but they weren't soundtracks. Soundtracks were generally orchestrated music more than it's the songs. So anyways, we moved on and we did Town Without Pity, Gene Pitney, but we changed that around. We took it from Gene Pitney's slow 2-2 beat, we moved it up to a jump 4-4 beat. And Frankie Capek played guitar on that one, and Perry did the vocals again, background vocals with Heather Peters. It turned out great. We kept on going. We did what I call a Be My Baby medley, which contained 6 of the old famous girl songs. And then we did a version of Peggy Sue, and we rearranged it into a reggae song called Reggae Sue. At the time, I hired Rocket Rock and Clem Julian and Raphael Merriam from the famous Gizeh reggae band. These cats are all from Martinique and West Africa, original Rastafarian cats. And they did a version of Peggy Sue as Reggae Sue with a full reggae beat, and it just turned out incredible. Then my next one was a Dion medley, featuring 3 of Dion's songs, Run Around Sue and
Ruby,
and 2 of his other great hits. And it turned out great with Joey Passy doing the lead vocals, and we had a great time with that. Presently, back to your original question, working on a Frank Sinatra medley. Now, people that I've mentioned this to say to me, Frank Sinatra? hardcore rock and roller for 50 years, for 60 years, actually maybe a few more, and blues guy and jazz guy, but not so much the jazz other than with the Chicago Horns, but definitely the rock and roll. Frank Sinatra, I says, well, they go, where's that coming from? I said, well, what we're doing is we took 6 of Frank Sinatra's cuts, Chicago, Chicago Is, and the theme from New York, New York, and The Way You Look Tonight, and a couple of others. We segmented them into 2.5 minute segments, and what we're doing with it is we're taking Frank's big band swing sound, and we're taking a rock and roll sound, not to coin it or put it in a category, but let's say Motley Crue, Aerosmith, Ted Nugent, the hard rock and roll, and we're squeezing it together down, and we're having the rock and roll meet the big band swing in the middle.
Okay.
And some people looked at me and they go, you got to be kidding. It's impossible. You can't combine those two.
Right.
Well, Joey Mirabelli, arranger and my producer for this project, he rearranged this. I take these visions and I feed them off to these musicians like yourself or Joey or Chips Enough or Pat Doody, one of the great musicians. I said, here's my idea. Make this work musically.
Right.
And I give them the music and the lyrics that I want to use and an idea, and they create this music. Well, Joey Mirabelli took this, and within like 3 days, he sends me a MP3 file, and my whole vision of these 6 songs patched together in a medley, which are all about 2.5 minutes long. I was just like, there it is.
Wow.
And I've played this for a few people that have questioned my sanity about trying to mix Frank Sinatra with Aerosmith. And they go, I'll be damned, buddy. You actually done this. I said, well, I came up with the vision, but Joey Mirabelli made this happen.
Right.
And it's coming out great.
We can't wait to hear it.
And presently we've got a drum and a bass, John Fallstrom on the bass. And
So we've interviewed Jan.
what a great bass player.
Oh, yeah.
Great. He's been on our blues review shows for 30 years now. He was one of the originals. And Tommy Salazar Jr. On drums. Tommy is a hard rock player, and you can hear his style of drumming on here, which we didn't have to, but we somewhat needed to put a harness on this wild horse drummer, to say, okay, we want rock here, but we don't need John Bonham or what's the guy?
Just tame it down.
Yeah, just to bring this down, but we want those hits in there. And this kid just morphed right into it. And just recently, Wednesday night, we finished keyboard tracks with Carl Mosier from your band, M&R Rush.
Okay.
And Carl has performed on previous tracks on our Mac project, which is, I'm calling it presently, a working title. And our next move is Joey Mirabelli's guitar and lead vocals. And then we'll bring in France Marie and Victoria Tellerico, along with John McFarland, your other partner in M&R Rush, to do the background vocals with Joey Mirabelli.
Okay.
So we got it all laid out, and the track we have so far is just incredible. So, and when I get finished with that, I'll be sure to get a copy to you guys.
Sure. So let's talk about the show one more time.
Okay.
It's Beverly Arts Center, April 16th coming up. April 16th.
That's correct. Saturday night, April 16th.
Memorial show for Tommy Biondo and Billy King.
Tribute memorial concert event.
Right.
Featuring SoPro Music's 38th annual Thanksgiving Blues Review Band. And special guests, Joey Mirabelli with Shannon Freer, Tony Wilson and Nobody's Business. And by the way, Tony Wilson was on my first show at that Kinetic Playground. And we've been partners and brothers and music partners since 1970. I got to say, man, it might have been 72. Okay, in case anybody's out there checking my reality and my figures. And, of course, Tommy's former band, the Wrong Boys, along with the Royalty of Chicago Blues, SoPro Music's Blues Review Band. And showtime is at 5:30. We got an early start, and tickets are available through the Beverly Arts Center website or through SoPro Music's website, which is www.soulpromusic.com. And you go to the events page and follow the links, and you can pick your own tickets out, but they're moving fast. We've got a good sale of tickets already going. So be sure you get in on that and get your tickets before we're sold out. And
we'll be sure to promote this on our website too, on our page.
That's definitely appreciated.
On our Facebook page.
Like I said, I got a lot of fans out there that are doing the Facebook. A lot of musicians that are performing, and other friends and fans that are posting on the Facebook. And I actually had one of my old buddies I grew up with, who most of that crew are not rock and rollers, and he sent me a text back with the cover picture of that promo on my promo cards. And he said underneath, he says, "Is this you?" And I texted him back. I said, "Of course it's me."
Yeah.
I said, "Who else would it be with my So Pro Music logo on there? You know any other buddy that has the name of So Pro Music?" And he writes back, he says, "Way to go, bro." Anyways, we hope to see all you folks out there. And I want to thank Ray the Roadie and Paul Martin here for having me on their podcast, Rock and Roll Chicago podcast. Right. Two outstanding brothers. Love you guys. Thanks for having me. And look forward to being back, and we'll talk more about some of the other So Pro and Bud Monaco.
Sounds good.
Operations.
All righty. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thanks for joining us. So that was Bud Monaco. But he's a good guy.
Yes, he is, man. He's got some stories.
Yes, he does. Started out playing hockey, and it's led to his music career.
Yeah, he's kind of from my neck of the woods. He used to hang out in Marquette Park.
Yep.
Beautiful Chicago, Illinois.
Yep.
At the Peace Bridge. Those of you from the area would know what the Peace Bridge is.
I don't know what Peace Bridge is.
I know.
What's Peace Bridge?
It was a bridge over the lagoon. It had peace signs on it. And that's where people hung out. All the hippie people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went by there. I didn't hang out there.
No.
I wasn't a hippie.
No.
You
are now, though.
I am now. I have converted.
Yes,
I have. Yes.
You tell you got your hair.
Yeah, well, I got my
hippie hair.
And I got my Nehru jacket on today.
Yes. Is that part of being a hippie?
Yes, it is.
Is it?
Yeah, I kind of look like the mamas and the papas.
You get your beads. And
get my beads.
And your tie-dyed shirt.
That's right.
You're looking very fashionable.
That's right. Or I'm going to a Grateful Dead concert, one of the two.
Right. So Buddy has some great stories there.
He did.
And he's got a show coming up on April 16th at the Beverly Arts Center.
The BAC, for those of you in the know, starts at 5:30 sharp. So don't think you're going to get there at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And why? It'll 5:30.
Yes. SoPro presents the Tommy Biondo and Billy King Tribute Memorial Concert event with SoPro Music's 30th annual Thanksgiving Blues Review Jam.
With a plethora of musicians.
Yes.
That you will enjoy, including the Chicago Horns.
Yes. So that's Saturday, April 16th. Be sure and get your tickets. And now you can go to Beverly Arts Center's website and find out more there.
Or go to sopromusic.com. They've got a link there to the tickets.
Or call the box office at 773-445-3838.
That number again.
773-445-3838.
Call right now
for your tickets for this Tommy Biondo and Billy King Tribute Memorial Concert.
Tickets are going fast.
It was great talking with Buddy.
Yes, it was. And again, we'd like to thank the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum on Route 66 in beautiful downtown Joliet, Illinois, for providing us with this spectacular studio for our podcast.
Yes, indeed.
It's always fun to come down here, and it's moving along quite splendidly.
Yes, it is. Yes, they're hanging drywall today as we speak.
That's right. Pretty soon, you'll be able to come and visit the museum and maybe even catch Paulie and I in the studio doing a podcast with some famous Chicago musician.
That's right. Very good.
And you can wave to us, and we probably won't wave back because we're too cool for that.
I'll wave.
Well, yeah, okay. Alrighty then. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Send my wave file.
Oh, you're what? You got to get those. You got to figure them buttons out. I'm going to make little stickers for you to put on those buttons so you know what special effect is what.
Yes. I keep hitting the wrong one.
You do. So, alrighty, we'll see you, everybody. Well, we won't really see you, but we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening.
The Rock and Roll Chicago podcast does not own the rights to any of the music that's played on this podcast.
The music is used to promote the band or musicians that are interviewed.
Rock and Roll Chicago.